Hello, good morning. I'm here to talk to you about the mental health side of Reentry. A couple years, about a year and a half ago, the Reentry program was doing well with our mainline population, and the Sheriff's Department saw a need to help provide services for those who are mentally ill in our custody. I'm sure everyone here knows that the mental health population is rising in the jails, and they constitute a large problem for management within the facility because of their psychotic disorders. They don't respond to your normal tactics. So the Reentry team brought on a mental health officer, who was me, to try to work with them specifically to try to provide a reentry program for them, also to increase the quality of life, not only their quality of life, but the quality of life for the deputies who are working in that facility. Also, we're trying to locate alternative housing other than jail. Where can we put these inmates? Can we get them to a hospital? Can we get them to a boarding care facility, someplace else that would be able to treat them other than just lock them up? Again, collaboration word. Deputy Estes, Dave and I, we can't do this on ourselves. We work with the people in the community because they're the ones that are providing these services. I was at a meeting and someone in the general public was questioning the amount of money the Sheriff's Office was spending on the reentry program. My response to him was, the only thing the Sheriff's Office is paying for is the 2 deputies. Every other service that we're using is either a nonprofit, a state agency, or a federal agency, or another county agency. So some of those people that we work with would be NAMI, nonprofit organization, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. They've been a great partner. We've worked with them to help families visit people in the jail who are mentally ill, and also work with them on how they can provide information to our medical staff on their loved ones who are in the jail. Give them a history of that person's mental illness, their doctors, their medications, who they can contact on the outside to help that person while they're on the inside. We also work with our local shelters and providing people a bed. There's actually a mental health shelter in our county, so we can refer them to the mental health shelter. Another person that I work well with is our veteran service officer. People don't realize, you ask them if they're a veteran when they come into custody, they say, no, I'm not. Well, it doesn't matter if you served in a war. If you served one day in the military, you might be eligible for not only maybe not VA benefits, but what's called grant per diem benefits. I have a guy that I just released last week. He only did 80 days in the military. He was released on a general discharge, but he was eligible for grant per diem. The veteran service officer came, picked him up, drove him to a dual diagnosis treatment facility, picked up his medications, and that person will hopefully be able to have now has a place to live and a place to go because of only the 80 days that he spent in the Army. So some of the main things that we do on the mental health side of it is try to locate dual diagnosis treatment facilities. It's hard to find a program that's willing to take somebody on psych meds who's mentally ill as well as has a substance abuse problem. So those agencies are few and far between, and they have a lot of requirements. One of them is that when that mentally ill person walks into their treatment facility, they want that person to have their medications in hand. So what we'll do is we have our reentry nurse. I'll call Diana and say, hey, so-and-so's getting out next week. They're going to a treatment facility. Can you please order some medication for them to put them on their property when they're released, so that way when they go to that facility, they have their medications in hand. We also have our nurse get the TB results, and then we'll print out a head sheet of their picture, their name, their date of birth, their address, things like that, because a lot of them won't have identification. So we try to present a package so when they walk out of the facility, our jail, they have everything they need to get into that treatment program so they're not turned away. And like Dave said, we'll also help them apply for benefits, our local county medical program. I've actually gone on the internet, print out the Google Docs, print out the application, give it to the inmate, scan it, email it to the person over at the county to try to get that person set up so when they get out of jail, they actually have their CMSP available to them. And then we'll call the med clinic, and when that person gets out of jail that morning, we'll make an appointment for them and we'll give them a bus pass. Say, okay, your med clinic appointment's at 2 p.m. Here's your bus pass, go down to community mental health, see the psychiatrist, and do your intake appointment. Another thing we do is we work with the public guardian's office on conservatorships. And so if we have someone in the jail who's severely mentally ill that is gravely disabled as well, so we'll work with them and try to get that person conserved versus staying locked down in our jail 24/7. And some of the things that we can do is provide them with inmate management notes. What's this person's disorder? How are they behaving in custody? What kind of things are they doing that are delusional and psychotic? And paint a history of that person by going to comm center and getting the calls for service and printing out a call log for them. Or just like their dates in custody. How often do they get arrested and what do they get arrested for? And then because 5150 says you can take in the historical course of that person's illness when you're putting them on a hold or you're putting them on a conservatorship. So we'll do the background information up to like a year past. So they have that history, so when they look at that person for a conservatorship, they're not just looking at the guy in jail, they're looking at what he's done. So just a couple of examples. We had a parolee, as we all know, where they're doing their times in our local county jails now for their 3056 holds. So this guy got out of prison and he got arrested repeatedly. He was definitely manic and schizophrenic. Whoever you talk to got different diagnoses for him. But when they come into our jail, we're not a jail that can force medication. So their behavior is such that we have to send them out to Santa Clara. And this guy would go to Santa Clara pretty much every time that he got arrested. And they're charging us $1,500 per day. So this guy spent over a month one time in Santa Clara to the tune of $50,000. And then he comes back because he's time served. We'll kick him out the door the next day. And then he gets arrested and he comes back and we send him back down to Santa Clara again. So I said, hey, what can we do with this guy? This guy is mentally ill. He needs to be conserved. So it's not quick, it's not easy. It took us about 9 months, but we were able to finally get him on a conservatorship and transfer him from our jail to the state hospital. And I know state hospitals are expensive, but they're not nearly as much as $50,000 a month. So state hospital is about $200,000 a year, and we're spending $50,000 a month for this guy. Another person that we've worked with was someone with a developmental disability, someone who is developmentally delayed. And he was arrested for burglary and possession of stolen property. And it wasn't a real burglary. This guy goes in this guy's house to use the bathroom. And then he feels bad, so he cleans it. And then he does the dishes. And then he folds the laundry. And and then he walks out with an iPad cord. So he got arrested for burglary and possession of stolen property. So he's housed in our lockdown unit because he has a management problem. And so what we're able to do is to, the DA filed 2 felonies in this case, so we're able to go to the DA and say, hey, do you think we can work something out with this guy? And so what we did was call the East Bay Regional Center, where he was a client, got a hold of his caseworker. That caseworker was able to find a boarding care facility for him that was staffed 24/7. And the case manager said, hey, I'll come pick him up and drive him to this facility. He'll be managed over there. And so we presented that to the judge and the DA, and we're able to get that guy released on OR, and now he's looking at diversion. He hasn't been back since that happened about 6 months ago. And Dave will talk to you now about some statistics.